You've heard all of rap about how hard warriors scale. Is this finally it? It's time for Ulduar, and this time around the gear is even better than it was before. So no more DPS facement for you. And arms is a support spec, and you don't play support, you do damage. You're a Fury Warrior, and you're here to blast. I'm Jambros, and I'm here to help you decide what items you should and should not aim for in this loot guide for your maximum DPS enjoyment. I mean Fury Warrior. Those Rep Paladins don't stand a chance. Before I start these gear comparisons, here's some of the specifics for the sims done. I chose the top 3 items to compare against each other, and these items are simmed twice. Once for how much of an upgrade it is for you in full Nax gear, and the second for how the items stack up when you're in full Ulduar BIS. 3-minute encounters, I also didn't sim as trolled, human instead, and won't for any of the loot guides to reduce variance when comparing between classes. Okay, let's get going with the Helm. All 3 of these Helms are almost equal upgrades in a full Nax set. The tier Helm is a surprisingly high DPS upgrade for only being 6 item levels higher. The War Helm of the Champion is a 252 item level, and I guess surprisingly low. Its problem is the huge amount of hit on it. You really don't need that much as a Fury Warrior, and it's pretty severely devalued once you pass the special attack hit cap. Because of that, the tier 8 Helms end up being overall BIS by a pretty solid margin, and is one piece closer to achieving your 4-piece set bonus. The tier Helm is the easiest to get, and you should probably just stick with that. The War Helm is only worth it if you can make use of almost all of its hit rating, and even then, in its best set, you'd be foregoing the 4-piece bonus and replace the also easy to get tier shoulder with some Algalon ones, albeit 10-man. Using the flight goggles would actually require you to add hit somewhere else after subbing out pieces, and you'd be looking at some other 252 items that ends up being more than 80 DPS behind anyways. Next up, neck piece. It might be a surprise to some of you, but the Pendulum of Infinity comes out BIS compared to the other 252 strength piece, the Frigid Strength of Hodier. In fact, out of the gate, that item is really quite weak. Only being a 12 DPS upgrade seems weird, but it's due to the excess hit that you'll likely be struggling with all tier. If you can make use of all of the hit rating, then this is a very strong piece, and you should really consider it if you're able to down that hard mode. Strength of the Heavens from 10-man Algalon is another realistic option. In a full set, the margin between all these pieces narrow a bit. The Hodier neck still struggles from too much hit, but it's reasonably close. Also, the Brooch of the Wailing Knight actually simmed really close to these 2 pieces, like a couple DPS. The tier shoulders are BIS for their shoulder slot, but big ouch out of the gate. They are, however, a hit staple piece in your set, and you should aim to make use of all of that rating. This 30 DPS downgrade will turn into an upgrade once you're able to pair it with another for the 2-piece bonus. As you can tell, it's not the individually best item though, because that belongs to the shoulder plates of the Celestial Watch from 10-man Algalon. I don't want to undersell this item at all. It's actually very good and super useful while you're working towards full BIS to drop hit and switch items around on tier pieces. You could use these plus the War Helm with hit, or even better, the Yogg 252 hit ring and Embrace of the Gladiator, the 252 leather chest. That'll probably never happen, but you keep dreaming. The tier shoulders do come out on top overall though. Shoulder pads of the Monolith are not really worth considering, and if I'm being honest, weren't the 3rd overall best option either. They are, however, your 3rd most likely option. The Mantle of Fiery Vengeance, a male piece, and Shoulder Pads of the Intruder both simmed better than Monolith, but only by about 20 to 30 DPS. They're also 25-man hard mode items that you shouldn't be considering as options. The Drape of the Faceless General is a big upgrade, almost 100 DPS, and it comes from 10-man. This is really a pretty uncontested slot for a Fury Warrior. You should be aiming for this. The Drape of Icy Intent is a 252 agility cloak, and really shouldn't be on your list. Save it for the rogues, druids, hunters, whatever. These other 2 cloaks are a decent bit behind the 10-man Vezek cloak in an endgame set, but don't forget about this Drape of the Drake Rider either. As an upgrade from anything in tier 7, even the worst raid groups will be able to kill Razor Scale. Before you say I forgot about the Algalon quest item cloak, the Skyborn one, I didn't. It suffers from excess hit rating. It's definitely good if you can make use of it, just not as good. You should be aiming for the tier 8 chest piece as the 3rd of your tier set. It's actually a really solid 73 DPS upgrade right away from Chestguard of the Recluse, as long as you can make up that lost expertise rating with, say, Ruthlessness or Girdle of Vesuvius. Now you might look at this and say, wow, the tier piece is crap, give me that Embrace of the Gladiator. And I guess you'd be right if you didn't care about anybody else in your raid. Or maybe you want to drop some crazy amount of gold in a GDQP for it. Go ahead. But even in a BIS set, it does fall behind the tier ones, because you'd end up dropping your 4-piece and roll with 2-piece instead. On top of that, you'd have to replace other slots with more hard mode gear, only to technically have a worse set anyway. All the other chests in Ulduar are a bait, just don't use them. In Ulduar, you can upgrade these leather bracers with, well, more leather bracers, or these 2 plate ones. These are actually all really good, but pretty hard to get. The Bitter Cold arm guards from 10-man may be the easiest, but there's still an almost 100 DPS upgrade. Even in an exit set, they're all pretty close. The solar bindings are best overall utilized as one of your expertise pieces, but the other 2 are probably more realistic. There are 2 other bracers to consider, but only if you can use the hit on them, and they're worse than these. Decimator's arm guards from Kologarn 25 and the Fluxing Energy Coils, a leather piece from 10-man XT hard mode. And the gloves will ideally be your 4th tier piece for the set bonus. These are actually not all that good. They have a ton of hit and expertise, things that are really easy to overcap for you, but you'll have to slot this in as one of those pieces. They're not an individual upgrade, you'll have to have another tier piece for the 2 set to make it worth it. What is funny, your biggest upgrade has intellect on it. That's because they're the only 252 gloves. In a full set, it's not worth switching out for the tier piece though by about 50 DPS. This is kind of a garbage slot. The Blade Breaker gauntlets are an okay temporary option if you want to spend the emblems for the gloves, but tier shouldn't be super hard to get. There is a 4th option from 25-man Freya, the gloves of Ruthless Reprisal. They steadily simmed a few DPS behind the Blade Breaker ones. I keep saying let's get rid of those leather pieces only for your BIS to be more leather. It's a little ridiculous. Anyway, there's 2 other really good plate options too, but the Soul Devouring Cinch is notoriously insane, and it comes from 10-man. All 3 are huge upgrades, but there's a problem with the plate items. What happened here? Same problem as before. Easily overcapping hit and expertise stats as a Fury Warrior when they've better gotten elsewhere. If you can actually use all the hit, then the Belt of Colossal Rage is pretty bonkers too, but your DKs are going to yell at you for taking it when it's not even bits. The legs, ideal for your off piece from the tier set. By ideal, I mean practically 100% required, because unless you have one of these 2 25-man hard mode pants, then this slot is trash. Your overall BIS is a leather. Have fun fighting your leather wearers for that one. There are the 252 plate pants, but even then, they end up almost 50 DPS behind the leg guards of Cunning Deception due to its lack of armor pen. You might be thinking, where are the tier pants? Well, I didn't list them because they're terrible. All setups including them simmed worse than these male razor scale pants with intellect on them. They're that bad. Same story with the fused alloy leg plates, way too much hit on them. The leg plates of the Violet Champion are 4th here ahead of the tier ones, and should be used ahead of the Nax pants once you're able to make up for the lost expertise rating. Look, it's a plate item, but yeah, the Sabatons of the Lifeless Knight are a big item. Unfortunately, they drop from 25-man Algalon, so you might be waiting a bit for them, otherwise you should stick with the Melancholy Sabatons you already have for Malagos. There are no other good options, even the plate-crafted ones which actually simmed behind these male ones listed. There are a ton of different rings, and I struggled a bit to find the top 5, but here they are with one caveat. I'll get to that in a second. The first ring you should replace is the Ring of Invincibility. Keep the Great Ring of Collision for your 2nd upgrade. All of these rings are comparatively very good, with the worst of the bunch still being over a 70 DPS upgrade. Here's the chart, and without a doubt, the best pair are Brand Signet and Sealing Rings, the quest item reward for 10 and 25 man. It gets a little weird here since it shows Loop of the Agile as the 3rd best ring, but make no mistake, the Seal of the Betrayed King is very, very good, and is ideally your 3rd option. It offers some hit flexibility for your other pieces, but that's also its downside. It has hit, something you'll probably end up with too much of anyways. Now, that caveat I mentioned earlier, Band of Lights is missing from this list. It's the agility and hit ring from 10-man Algalon. Obviously, the reason I left it off is because of the hit, but if you can actually make use of that hit, it is definitely better than Strength of the Automaton here. Speaking of, while it's the least desirable of the bunch, it's also the easiest to get from Flame Leviathan normal, so it makes a great bridge piece. Unlisted rings like Sif's Promise and Blade Bearers make solid bridge pieces as well if you can utilize the stats on them. Trinkets are weird, and take a little explanation because you probably call me crazy on first glance at this list. In Nax, your best 2 trinkets are the Greatness Deck and Grim Toll. To begin upgrading your trinkets, you will need to keep one with an armor pen proc, and the Greatness Deck stays very good. That means you'll want to keep Grim Toll or the new Mjolnir Runestone from 10-man form hard mode. That's why the Runestone has it as a 82 DPS upgrade, from replacing Grim Toll. All these other listed trinkets are from replacing your Greatness Deck while paired with Grim Toll. They sim even worse if you replace Grim Toll instead of the deck. As your gear gets better, these numbers will improve. However, it also highlights the importance of the runestone. It is practically a requirement to get that trinket first. Here's the full BIS chart. I probably could have made it a lot smaller. I feel like this is a lot of words to say just get the Mjolnir runestone. Then once you have it, you can pair it with the Strength Greatness deck. The only better trinket than Greatness is Comet's Trail, which drops from 25 mana Algalon and is only about a 30 DPS upgrade. There's quite a few ranged DPS upgrades in Ulduar from the Envoy Immortality you previously had, but none that make a giant difference in DPS. The biggest upgrade is Twirling Blades from Hard Mode Flame Leviathan and 10 Man. Shout out to Giant's Bane here for actually being a solid tier 7 upgrade, but it really falls off compared to the other two in full bit. It actually loses out eventually to the Magnetized Projectile Emitter by about 10 DPS, which is another 10 man hard mode item from XT, despite having a little bit of hit on it. And finally, the weapons. If you are one lucky warrior, then you're rocking 2 Betrayers of Humanity, but you'll be replacing these pretty fast if you kept any of that luck. And look at these DPS upgrade numbers. Even the Hammer of Crushing Whispers, which suffers from having 75 hit rating on it, is a massive 277 DPS upgrade. Volchathar for a Fury Warrior may be the single biggest item upgrade for any class in the game. Don't take my word on that, but I'd wager it's true. Keep in mind these are main hand upgrades. Always upgrade your main hand before your offhand. Here's what it looks like in a full set. They're all big upgrades, look how big a gaps there are between them as well. Volchathar and Acers will be big targets for you. Once you're lucky enough to get one, you'll be looking for a second to put in your offhand. Still a large spread, but it's really just a slightly muted version of main hand upgrades. That's it. If you have any questions, drop them below in the comments or come by on Twitch, link below in the description to catch me live. If you like the sort of content and want to help support this channel, be sure to like this video and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you next time.